It's been about a week since I made a video. A lot has happened. Uh, that's the things that are relevant to helping others that have targeting going on, or people are bullying you in social media, and they're carrying it through to the real world, real time. The stuff that's relevant to that, I'll probably make more videos this weekend. But the one I wanted to talk about right now, the issue is people may be experiencing this. Now, if you are a veteran with health issues and they crept up on you, later in life, maybe you registered for VA medical care, but you never put a claim in until later in life, which actually for the vast majority of veterans, that's up through maybe halfway through the current, I don't even know what they're calling the operation now. I don't know the name of the current operation, Noble Legal? I'm not sure. Or if we're in Enduring Freedom, or I'm not sure what we're in. Anyway, all the way through, about halfway through Iraqi Freedom and Enduring Freedom. The vast majority of people, they didn't, leave the military with a claim, with issues pertinent to a claim being transferred over to the VA, or they didn't, within a year or two file anything, But things are changing now. A lot of things are changing because Vietnam vets, everything that happened to them, they've educated the public. So now that we are mostly through, a great drawdown happened, but we're at the end of the current operations, and people are experiencing stuff equal to or worse than what happened in Southeast Asia. It's kind of motivating veterans to do something now. Doesn't mean people are have a full both ears open, but they're certainly open more than they were for Vietnam and Korean veterans. So that being said, I've been experiencing, I don't know if other vets experience this, but when you're disabled and while you're doing the process of trying to get better, then you decide, there's a lot of stuff, I need to file a claim, get some extra medical funds open, some rehab funds to kind of, re-steer the direction, of our careers, because maybe we can't do the same things anymore. And to get, compensation now because you have less earning capacity. Even if you could do half of the stuff that you did 5 years ago or 2 years ago, that's still decreased earning capacity. And there's an actuarial formula that the number cruncher guys use to consider our value. It's such thing as you put a value on a human life, and they will try to calculate your earning capacity. Now, sometimes these can be rather conservative, as I've experienced in my past. And if you're not on your toes, you may walk out with the short end of the stick. Still satisfied that things are done and you're moving forward, but yet your actual value is greatly undermined because yourself, and your people that were at the table on your side, they weren't fighting like they should have been. But now that being said, the Raiders will include all this stuff too, to a certain degree. Usually it's more SSI and Social Security where that stuff is used, but the VA used it in a different way, some of the same formulas. But now that being said, so you deserve compensation too. But this is, I'm discussing here the medical issues. Now, when you're in the process of doing all this claim stuff and trying to find out exactly what's wrong with you, so how, what your maximum medical improvement, again, there's that word MMI, that acronym. And you will, actually, is that an acronym? Anyway, forget it. You'll hear that a lot. But generally, while you're going through all of this, you're going to have limited or no earning capacity. Now, I busted my butt in graduate programs. I didn't intend to be here. I intended to go back to active duty. In one of 2 or 3 different fields that I was supposed to have a foot in. One of them I easily could, but now I have too many medical issues to get a waiver. That would take an act of God, and now I would need an endorser. And I was discloaked for remarrying, so my options would be limited there. And actually, I've never been to a Eastern or Roman Catholic seminary anyway. But that being said, I went to a different seminary. It was Protestant. But that being said, I had, and then there was a couple of other fields that I'm qualified to do too, but because of my health and us being financially, captive here where we are in mid-Michigan, I wasn't able to leave here and go somewhere where I would, without a doubt, be able to get a lot of opportunities as a contractor, as a consultant, a lot of stuff, even with medical limitations. But we're stuck here where there's, not a whole lot I can do. And, now that we're trying to look into all my health issues, the most I could probably do is do some kind of running a business, but with no funds. You can't run a business with no funds. So my businesses, they just sit there. Some of them already put down in paper, some of them already registered with the state, but they just sit there inactive, not operating. So our income is limited. So, we get state benefits, among other stuff. And what I've experienced with the VA with healthcare is some referrals, they'll, I don't know exactly how this system, I know a lot of people. I have family that have a lot of trouble with Medicare. They tell me if I can find some way to avoid 2 of them. I think there's Medicare. I think there's 4 Medicares. 3 or 4, and they told me there's only one that's good. All of the rest of them, they're headaches, they're stress, they're not cost effective, they're costly, and in addition to costing the government a lot of money, they also cost the patient a lot of money. They said there's only one that's good. But I don't know if others deal with Medicaid, but what I've found that at least for the past, a current referral for, a very good surgeon to fix some of my neurological issues. I mean, there's quite a few. And they sent me a contract for a medical lien. Now this, if the VA is supposed to be your primary, especially under Veterans Choice, as I think it's called, and then under PACT Act, and then also there's Optum out there. Some stuff Optum will cover, and then I think Veterans Choice is our VA healthcare for us veterans. Veterans Choice is the community side, the non-VA side. But I've had experiences before with hospital ER and with the ambulance ride that there was a fight between the VA and Medicaid. 1 minute the VA said that they would pay for this and this and this, and the next minute they said they wouldn't. They said that Medicaid is the first payer. Then Medicaid says, oh, no, the VA is the first payer. So I'm the one that suffered because until they can figure this out, they put it on my credit report. Well, actually, not on my credit report. They handed it over to collection agencies. And being as I'm, an individual in mid-Michigan that stuff is publicized, I don't know exactly all the places. I think there's some stuff out there somewhere in Snapchat and Facebook and Twitter, and then out on QAnon message boards, on and on boards. So my debts get handed back and forth. I have some debts from what happened with the VA when a HUD-VASH worker lied to me and had me pay, several $1,000s for stuff that they said, oh, you'll be reimbursed, and it was not true. Some of those debts, they've only been out there for 2 or 3 years, and this is in addition to identity theft while we were in the VA homeless shelter system, because my apartment was rented under me. So it took 9 months to find another one. And that stuff was never reimbursed. And some of those debts, it's only been a couple of years, they've changed hands a half a dozen times. Because it's out there. So people know exactly who to target, because it's out there in the web. Oh yeah, this person, we do not like him or her. They've reported some of us. They've figured out some of the ways that we target or hack people, and they've told people about it. They've told law enforcement. We don't like them. Some people have wrote about us academically, and if those papers get out, we don't like them. So your debts will be handed back and forth, and that's what I've had to deal with. And all these people are really clever social dirt. They use P.O. boxes and all kinds of clever stuff. P.O. boxes with power of attorney given to people to take their mail and stuff. All very clever stuff, so they can't be served. And even when you look up their identification with particular state that they're from, the business registration information, when you look that up through government sources, you find even there they're so clever that they can't be served. Really underhanded stuff. These are not deep state. These are not government employees. These are scum under the carpet. These are bad people. And so the people that they victimize, they don't get due recourse. They don't get due process. They have no way to, no recourse to get justice for themselves. Their credit is just continually destroyed. Which, if you're, used to government service or contracting, you won't be able to get a security clearance easily anymore. So that affects the food on your table for your family. And this stuff is not funny. It's not a joke. The type of people who are involved in stuff like this, they should be in prison. They're a threat to national security and to the people that hold our government up in faithful service. These people are a threat to those kind of people that these agencies hire to protect our country, to protect our way of life. But so if you have Medicaid, there's a complication with getting these, doctors or clinics paid, or imaging paid for, or ER visits, hospitals getting paid for, operations being paid for, because there's this disconnect between VA, Veterans Insurance, and I think there's another one called Healthy Choice. Actually that's a food thing. I think that's a food company. There's another one called Veterans Health. I can't remember, but there's like 2 or 3 different. They're all rolled into community care. We'll say that community care based insurance, and that's the disconnect is between Medicaid. I mean, even within the VA, you'll walk in there and they'll say, "Oh, you have to pay a copay for insurance." You're like, "What?" There's a sliding scale for this. Well, you have to pay. We receive state insurance. Oh, we didn't know that. Well, I put it on the form. Oh, okay. Well, you have to go to eligibility. We'll have to figure this out. What? Figure it out? Yeah, you may have a copay while we're figuring it out. Oh, why don't I just go to my civilian doctor? Well, but you can't go to your civilian doctor to get a prescription here. Okay. But anyway, the same thing applies with taking a prescription from the VA into the community. Now, I tried this for my continuous glucose monitor. I have a 6-month 6-month prescription for them. And 6 months, that is. 6-month prescription. 2 different prescriptions. But because the provider refuses to put her license number on there, no pharmacy will give them to me, even to pay cash. I mean, which I thought about it. Why am I paying cash? I'm the person, when I have steady income, I automatically pay for stuff myself. My financial records verify that. I don't leave all of my stuff to the government. If we weren't financially captive, a lot of things would be different. We wouldn't have so many state benefits. Matter of fact, if I had sufficient income, I wouldn't be on any benefits. I'd rather have my own insurance, plus supplemental insurance, plus dental, vision, and then a whole life insurance, whole life and term life, and then AD&D, accidental death and indemnity, accidental death and dismemberment. There we go. It's been a while. My insurance license lapsed like 2 years ago. But so you have a problem herein with using your government insurance along with referrals from the VA. And I don't know if anybody experienced this or how to fix it. I've just ran into it recently, with that a contract for a medical lien. I'm like, whoa. So I'll post later in another video if I find some kind of resolution to this. Maybe it will help somebody out there who's in a similar situation. I've already had to straighten out, I think, two different bills where this has happened. One was for the oxygen generator, which some doctors say I should have on hand, others say I shouldn't, I don't need it. Well, the VA paid for it when I was in the hospital with COVID. So I'm like, okay. And if you buy medical devices, be careful, don't get fooled. Actually, the company that was the contractor for that tried to tell me that the $1,100 the VA paid was a rental fee. I said, are you telling me that the VA rented this daily while I was in the hospital for COVID? Yes, it's $1,100 a day. And so I'm like, well, I was in the hospital for 3 days, including ICU time. I was in the hospital for 3 days, and how come you only billed for one? Oh, that's why we're calling you now to bill for the other two. I'm like, I've already been discharged. They sent me home with the device. Oh, well, you have to return it. I'm like, I'm not going to return this. The hospital told me that it's been paid for already. Well, they're incorrect. I'm like, well, how about you jump on something like Google medical shopping, or some other medical supply warehouse, not a medical supply store, but a medical supply warehouse, and you price these and tell me that $1,100 is a rental fee. For an old used one, medical or a hospital oxygen generator, a used one with bad batteries that's used again, and we don't know the history of it, and it has 2 bad batteries. I'm like, and you tell me that's worth more than $1,100. These things brand new, the model I have, brand new, brand spanking new with 2 brand new lithium batteries, is around $3,500. Mine is used. We don't know its history. It has 2 bad batteries, and the oxygen, the concentrator scrubs, so it is noisy as heck. So it's not worth more than $1,100. And so when I called the hospital, they're like, ignore them. They're like, don't give them any money. And they're like, these things resolve themselves. They have one doctor's signature. They don't need a whole bunch more. They said one is enough to requisition it and the hospital to get it for you through the VA. She's like, don't give them money. Ignore them. And she said, don't give that back either. That's been purchased. So, that being said, I mean, that's not, really relevant to my topic here, but just another way that, various people in various ways and means um, that shysters will do to try to get money from veterans. And bad people, or people that just don't care, will do things to us that in the end they hurt us and they hurt our families. And if you know what's the resolution for when you go to a specialist that's referred by the VA, and what the resolution is for this Medicaid, Medicare, and Veterans Choice disconnect, so you don't get stuck with a giant copay or get litigated. If somebody has an idea, by all means, please post a reply there, or maybe even a link to maybe another veteran who does similar things that I do. Somebody informing people, so that I can figure this out, because this doctor is actually very well recommended, and as a great, very thoroughbred, academically and experientially, and if somebody's going to be touching my nerves and be cutting through those myelin sheath to operate on my nerves, I want to make sure it's somebody who is so knowledgeable that King Solomon would have him at his court. So, if anybody has any advice, please, by all means, post. And, referring to the continuous glucose monitor thing, still battling with that. According to the one person from the VA, supposedly this person who wrote it does it all the time, and pharmacies always take this without licensing. And the claim that somebody in the providers said on the team, they said, oh, we don't have to give out the licensing number because people could use it for fraudulent purposes. I'm like, well, not putting it on a prescription is for fraudulent purposes. So, it's just trying to spin me, but they're not going to spin me. And the time's probably going to come when, this person's going to be confronted and the VA doesn't do anything, then I'll go over their head to the DEA. And, either somebody, qualifies for the prescription or they don't. And the VA's criteria for continuous glucose monitor is so broad, it's harder to deny somebody. Or in a correction, it's harder, what I'm trying to say, it's harder to deny somebody than it is to approve people. There is a lot of very broad clausing in there for people, especially people that may have a chance of their sugar crashing, like a new diabetic, or somebody that has, I'm trying to think. There's like it's a long, guess you call it a statement in rules and procedures that the VA set forth regarding these. And Medicaid is a little bit more broad than they are, because Medicaid has a lot more flexibility. But the only thing that's detailed with Medicaid is if your doctor believes for whatever reason that you need a continuous glucose monitor, they have to document the reasons why and document the type of situations where it will help you. Then they can put the prescription in. But like I said before, I hope that just by some grace of God that the Attorney General sees, one or two of my videos that talk about the continuous glucose monitor, because there's price gouging going on, without a doubt. And my theory is they're doing it by limiting supply, because 3 to 4 months ago they were not $70 to $80 for one sensor. Some of them, I think it's Dexcom, is every 10 days, and then the Libres, those are the only two I remember offhand. I haven't really researched. There's one or two other companies, but I didn't really research them that much. But Libre is as 15 days, and then the Dexcom, I believe, is 10 days, so you would get 3. And then Libres, you would get 2 a month. But the Dexcom used to be like 80 to No, it used to be around 190 to 120 for two for a month, and the Libre used to be around, what was it, like 40 or 50 for one for a month, so less than $100 for a month. Both of them around 130 or less a month. Now they're both 80 to 90 per sensor. The price, the price on one is doubled, and on the other it has tripled. So, and it seems to me that they're trying to limit access. Since I become diabetic, I'm meeting more and more diabetics, people that were just, talking about stuff in common, and it seems like it's harder for people to get them when they're the most advantageous thing out there. The first generation, sometimes they failed, but so do the glucometers. Sometimes you could get a bad patch of insulin, where it's not as concentrated as it should be. So can the reaction to a pill get delayed by maybe a heavily oily meal, and the reaction of a particular pill, to help glucose absorption, or help, insulin insulin sensitivity can be delayed or lowered. Lots of stuff can happen, ifs and ifs. That doesn't mean that you don't take the new tech that can be advantageous. And anything can fail. Something. One of the most important things in medical care, because it affects the dosage of any medication you're given, especially stuff intravenous or intramuscular, is a scale. A scale is going to determine, what dosage of particular medications you're giving, and and scales fail all the time, or they're off by a couple of pounds, or they're off by 1/10 of a pound. So if we judge things by the extremities, by the various streams, we're kind of in philosophy we call that a grasping for straws approach, and that's not good logic at all. Or a hasty generalization approach. It's not good logic at all. For the most part, these glucose monitors, they help people a lot. Especially people who are older, and they may forget, that they did I test my glucose after lunch? Well, their provider or their grandkids or their kids can make sure everything's programmed so they get a warning on their phone. Glucose not taken, or not glucose, insulin not injected, reading not uploaded, stuff like that. This can help even people who are really busy, or people who live alone, or people who are older and have, their memory's not as sharp as it once was. These meters are only helpful. And it's not, all it's going to do is help American business, because all of the glucose monitors are made in the States. 90% of the stuff in there is made in the States. This is helping American businesses. So why do we want to restrict access? People have their phones anyway. You can walk down the street or walk into a store and you see somebody who's 85 looking at their smartphone. This helps American business. So I think it's absolutely crazy to restrict access to the continuous glucose monitors. Absolutely makes no sense at all. And it makes no sense at all for a provider to write prescriptions without licensing numbers either. Sometimes I just don't understand people's thinking. I don't understand why people make the choices they do.